guys, how's it going? Today we are going to be planting a bunch of bulbs out here in the cut flower garden. A bunch. We've got a gator full of tulips and daffodils. I'll run over all the varieties here in a moment. Here's where they're going. I'm thinking we're going to have enough bulbs to fill up the first 4 rows in this quadrant right here. And if we swing to the left, you can see where our driveway is. So as we're driving in and out, we'll be able to enjoy all this beautiful early color. I don't recall if we've ever planted bulbs out here, like spring flowering bulbs for cutting. So I'm very excited about this. We're going to be treating these, of course, as annuals. We'll just be pulling them up bulb and all when we get ready to, pick them to use them in arrangements and things like that. Bethany is on her way out here. We're going to pull this status. I completely forgot that this was out here. Here she comes. Each one of the rows are 60 feet long, and then I'm thinking we can do 4 rows of bulbs per run. So essentially 240 feet of flowers per single row. So we're gonna go ahead and get the status removed really quick, and then we'll run through all the bulb varieties. Better. We were talking, I think it took us just a little over 5 minutes to get that done. Status is so easy to pull up, thankfully. Now, Aaron and I last night were discussing how we should get these planted. Like, what would be the quickest, most efficient way to plant them? And you might think that excavating, like digging out the whole row, like the trench method would be the easiest, but in my experience, the trench method is the worst. It's the most amount of work. So we're not going to do it that way. And then I thought, well, what if we just lined up all the bulbs right on top of the soil surface? We've got some compost out there on the dirt lands. What if we brought compost over and just buried them 6 inches, like did a kind of a mounded raised bed sort of situation over the bulbs? That way we didn't have to dig at all. I don't know if that would be good because they would be up out of the soil, like the native soil. I don't know if they'd get enough insulation. They'd probably be fine. So we're going to be using augers, which do make pretty quick work of things. I've got 2 different sizes here. We've got a 2-inch, which I think is going to be sufficient for most of our tulips. And then we've got a 3-inch right here, which we'll probably need to use for our daffodils. Now, both of these are the Laura Edition augers. They're made by Power Planter. The difference is the traditional Power Planters have a flighting, which is this piece right here, the metal twisty piece. The flighting goes way further up the length of this auger, and I just found that that was unnecessary for me. This digs every bit as deep of a hole, and it's a lot lighter weight. So when you're digging this many holes and you're moving this thing around that many times, that amount of weight adds up throughout the day. So this takes a little bit of pressure off of my body. And they are 36 inches tall. So I don't have to bend over when I'm doing it. I can just aug all the holes. We can put our fertilizer down, put the bulbs in, and the only time I actually have to get down on my knees is when I am making sure the bulbs are facing upright and then covering over them with soil. It's a pretty slick system, and Aaron's gonna help me too. A couple other things, the drill that we use, this is a DeWalt 20 volt. 18 volt is like the lowest I would go with a drill. To be used with an auger, you want to make sure you have plenty of power. And then I've got a bunch of bulb tone right here, which I think what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to go along right now before we even start digging holes, and I'm just going to top dress the soil with the bulb tone. When we aug the holes, that'll just churn it right into the soil, and I think that'll be perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to run through all the different varieties we have to pop out here. Now, I did go over all of these when we went over our bulb order earlier this year. It was sometime during the summer. But we'll just do it again. So in the daffodil row, maybe we can pop some pictures up. Daffodil row, we have Bella Estrellas, Accent, Casada, Del Nassau, Flower Parade, Frosty Snow, Mount Hood, Precocious, Queen's Day, Tom Pouce, and Topsy Turvy. It should be a really beautiful mix. Now, all of these are from color blends, daffodils and tulips. Then for our tulip rows, we're going to have 3 different kind of themes. One row will be lily flower tulips, one row will be double tulips, and then one row will be best tulips. They have a series on color blends like best purple, best red, best white, best yellow, and we're gonna color block them that way and do a whole row, and they're just like classic big tulip flowers. So the best row, we have best purple, pink, yellow, red, white, and red yellow. In the double row, we're gonna have Averons, Akebano, Morris Goodenough, Mount Tacoma, Wedding Gift, Finola, and Rosy Diamond. In the lily flower row, we're going to have Yume no Murasaki, Virashik, Queen Rania, Purple Heart, Marilyn, Liva, Inimitable. Am I saying that right? Blushing Lady, and Anatolia. It's gonna be pretty. Now we are gonna be digging our holes roughly 6 inches deep. You usually wanna space them out like, I don't even know what the tag says. It usually tells you. Yeah, 4 inches apart. And since we are growing these out here in a way that we're not gonna keep them out here, we're gonna probably plant them a little bit closer than that. So first things first, I'm going to apply the bulb tone down all these rows, and then we'll just start in. First row will be daffodils. Okay, Erin is out here. We've got the daffodils at least all lined out, kind of separated here. And I made tags, and I'm just reusing tags from our dahlia patch so that we can tell when one variety ends and the other one starts. Now I did some test digging. And
you want these pretty close together.
Well, I think to be effective, don't you think?
I agree. I think that they kind of need to be close.
The one downside of an auger, when you're wanting things to be very close together, and you have to kind of keep the holes open so that you can see, like you can see the trajectory you're going. You can't just dig a hole and then plant one bulb and then dig your next hole. So what happens is you've got all these holes next to each other. Augers tend to, throw soil around a little bit. So they tend to backfill the hole right next to it. So you have to kind of like dig it out again. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go with the mounding method. Now this is gonna be an experiment on kind of a large scale. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the barn, I'm gonna get some kind of a hoe, and I'm going to hoe a little bit of a trench, just enough to where we can nest the bulb a little bit down into the native soil. So when we come along with our compost and pour it over the top, hopefully they won't tip. They'll stay upright. I don't know, I think this will be an interesting method, because if it works.
Do we have enough compost?
Yes.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so if this works, which I'm sure it will, can we do it every year? Is it going to raise the soil too much?
It might.
I mean, if we just can we till the whole thing in after the show, like the spring show?
Like spread it out? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Absolutely. And I think naturally too, when we pull the bulbs out, like I said, I think it's going to remove some of the soil. I think I mentioned that earlier. And some of it will settle, and then we'll plant, new crops into the same relative area. And every time you remove crops, I think it removes more soil. Mm-hmm. So I think the more we add in here, especially if it's good compost, I'd be great with just spreading it out, okay, in this area.
I'm all for it. I think this is going to work better. Every time I've ever seen anybody plant in rows, I mean, they practically have the bulbs touching.
Right.
And in a flower bed situation, I think the auger makes more sense, because you can separate them a little more and let them kind of naturalize. Yeah. But in a row, I don't know that the auger makes as much sense.
But a trench method, like digging it out, that's how they get them so close. Right. That's a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah. I need some type of implement for the tractor.
Yes. I would be down with that. And a dahlia digger, and a potato digger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's find one.
All right, guys, we are 2 varieties in. I just wanted to show you how it's going so far. If this works, this is going to be amazing. You can see right here where the last daffodil bulbs ended. The little trenches are working perfectly. It gets them at least, an inch and a half down in the soil already. I kind of went along and just nested them in just with the native soil. And then we're going in with 4 or 5 inches of the compost. So other than looking a little bit like a cemetery out here with the mounded up soil, I don't think it will look so much like that once we have the 4 rows done. I think this is going to be awesome. Plus all those awesome nutrients being added to the garden. I think that's just great. Now I'm spacing these about 3 inches apart. After I got the first variety done, I stepped it off and then kind of did some math and figured out how I could fit all of these varieties. We have 75 of each one of them, 11 varieties of each, 75 flowers. So 825 daffodils I think will fit perfectly in that first row. Anyway, we're just going to carry on doing the same thing. Initially when we came out here, I thought, ooh, we might be spilling over into tomorrow. This project might take a little bit longer because we didn't start it until a little bit later in the day, but I think we might be able to get it done using this method a little bit quicker. All right, guys, we did not finish completely, but we got 3/4 of it done, and I'm really happy with that. I think it's going to be gorgeous. Now, this method of planting has not been tested, so don't try it until you see if it works well for us. And oh my gosh, that first row looked so funny when we very first had all that big mound of soil, and then it looks less funny and more on purpose when you've got multiple rows. And then of course, tomorrow I'll finish up the last row there. And wouldn't it be gorgeous to deck this whole section out with bulbs? I don't have enough bulbs to do that this year, but wouldn't that be pretty? The best part about planting tulips and daffodils in here is that we do plant a lot of bulbs every single fall, and we plant them out in the flower beds. And I always think, well, we're planting so many out here that I can cut them and I'm not going to feel bad about it, but I still do. I still feel bad about cutting blooms in our flower beds because they look so beautiful out there, and they add so much to the spring landscape that I like to enjoy them outside. They last longer outside, but in this case we get to cut them to our heart's content because that's what they're meant for. And we don't have to wait for the foliage to die back because we're treating these as cut flowers annuals, rather than trying to keep them, from year to year. And tulips, which is the majority of what we're planting, aren't as great at coming back. They don't naturalize like daffodils do. The daffodils, we could dig those out, and all of these bulbs may go to a new home when we're ready to do something else in here. They likely will. But the daffodils we could pop out into areas of our landscape and they naturalize beautifully. And I do think we got sufficient soil on top of these bulbs. I mean, there's a pretty good layer going on there. I don't know if you can see, that's at least 6 inches. I thought, if I notice if we get a lot of rain or something and it's making some of the soil wash off, I can come out here with a piece of, like that white harvest guard material, and I can just tack it down and just protect these little mounds of soil, and that would hold a little bit more heat in as well. So that is an option. Oh my gosh, you scared me, Russell. My goodness, you came out of nowhere. And the other nice thing is that we have now a bunch of land and sea compost, which that's what we have it for anyways, to use it out here. Whenever we do a new crop of something planted in here, we always top dress with land and sea, and then the material in between is just more of a barky wood mulch. So in this case, we just used a thicker layer than we normally do. So here's what we've got. We've got all of the doubles up here, and then I do have some extra. I ordered extra blushing ladies and Johann Kroof tulips. Last year I planted in the pots around the Hartley those 2 tulips, and they were so soft and so beautiful. I loved the combination. I was a little bit tentative about putting them together, and it ended up being really pretty. So I wanted to make sure to have some of those. I have no idea where I'm going to put them, if they're going to go in containers. They may even end up out at my parents' house. And you guys, that is going to do it for today. I'm super happy getting this much done, and it was an absolutely beautiful day to be out here. The week of temperatures ahead of us, no freezing, all days in the 50s. It's just wonderful. In fact, when we were out here working on this, Paul was working on Christmas lights on the other end of the property. So anyway, everyone's just getting stuff done, and it's just such a gift to have such beautiful weather. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.